Good morning, guys. So recently we've been talking quite a bit about that Can-Am Outlander 570 over there. So I thought it's only fair to do a 1-year update on the Suzuki here as well. It hasn't quite been a year yet. I bought both of these machines brand new at the end of last spring. We got them, for my son and I to both have something to ride when we go out on the trails, go camping and all that kind of stuff. He really wanted a Can-Am. He had talked for a long time about wanting a Can-Am. And I think what started that was a couple of years ago, we were camping somewhere. I think it was down at the Land Between the Lakes, and there was a guy down there that had a Can-Am Outlander. And when he drove by our campsite, it just sounded so good. I mean, I couldn't believe how good that thing sounded. I thought that he had some kind of aftermarket exhaust on there that caused that, but really it was just the stock setup. That's just the way those Can-Ams are, because they have a V-twin engine in them. You can just do a very minor modification to the muffler, and that's pretty much the way they sound. So it's got an awesome sound to it, and that makes a difference. It really does make it more enjoyable and more fun to ride when, every time you touch that throttle lever, it has that deep, rumbly V-twin sound to it. So I think that kind of got in my son's head a little bit, and he wanted a Can-Am. He asked me for a long time if we could trade his little Honda in for a Can-Am, and finally last year we did. And then because of the horsepower that thing comes with, I was getting left in the dust, and I couldn't have that, right? So I went and took my little Honda Rancher and traded it and got this Suzuki. So we've had both of these machines for almost a year now. Well, we've had the Can-Am for exactly a year, and like I said, it's coming up on a year for the Suzuki. So anyway, I'm just going to give you a few thoughts on this a year later. We've ridden quite a few off-road parks. We've got about 800 miles roughly on both machines now. So we've had them out in the woods quite a bit. We've ridden them around here. I've used this one on the property to do jobs out here also. And so, I've got some good seat time on both of them, and I just thought I'd give you my thoughts on the Suzuki a year later and whether or not I would buy this machine again. So I guess the elephant in the room here is the price. The Suzuki and the Can-Am are both 50 horsepower machines. I think technically, if you look at it on paper, they rate the Suzuki at like 49.6 or something. And I think the Can-Am is maybe 48. I don't know. It's just, for all intents and purposes, these are both 50 horsepower machines. We'll just call it that. So in terms of, specs on paper, power, they both have automatic transmissions. They both came with 25-inch tires on them. They both have four-wheel drive. They both have some kind of traction aid in the front differential. So if you start looking at them on paper, they're very similar machines. But this one, the Suzuki, was $2,000 more money. Okay, so that's a pretty significant price difference. This is a 750, that one's a 570, so the bore size is quite a bit different, but they still make the same power, which is interesting. But yeah, so when we first got these things, I was a little bit distraught because of the fact that Suzuki is $2,000 more money. And to be honest with you, that first month or two after I bought this machine, I was a little bit, had a little bit of buyer's remorse, because of the price of it. I was like, why in the world is this machine so much more money, But now that I've spent a year with both of these things, I have kind of discovered why that is. And the truth of the matter, guys, is the stuff that you look at when you first see these machines, that doesn't really tell the story, okay? So when you walk into the dealership, like I just said, you look at the machine, you see the layout of the machine, the tires, the kind of the design of the gauges here and the feet, where they put things at functionally, brakes, like this one has a separate front and rear brake, that one doesn't. You look at all these things that you can see, the things that pop out to you, and it's kind of like, there's really not a lot of difference here, right? You can't really tell a lot about these machines initially, like the first impression, and that's true of any ATV. We could throw Polaris, Arctic Cat, all the different brands in there. It's the same thing. You know, the first impression doesn't really tell you the whole story. After you live with these machines for a while, you start to see why there are huge price differences in these things. So what we've learned, you know, and you've been watching the videos, is that the quality on the Can-Am, well, there isn't any quality in the Can-Am. It's just an absolute piece of garbage, you know. And when you start looking at the Suzuki and you live with the Suzuki for a while, you start to see that that's where the price comes in. That's where that extra $2,000 comes from, is the quality of the machine. Things like the plastics, for example. The actual type of plastic that they use in the floorboards on the Suzuki, look how flexible that is. I mean, it's kind of rough around the edges because we've had, you know, a lot of obstacles we've been over and woods that we've been through and everything else. So it's a little rough, but it has never broken. You know, we ride all the same trails. We follow each other everywhere we go. We're going the same trails. This thing's never broken on me. You know, it's been bent around and flexed many times and it's never broken. You know, and that's just because of the specific type and formulation of plastic that they use in these things. It's really rugged, really heavy duty. It's not going to give you any trouble. Whereas if you look at the Can-Am over there, it's already got aftermarket steel floorboards on it because the factory floorboards literally started to crumble and fall apart. The first thing that broke was right here on this edge. That broke off. He was going over a tree stump or something, kind of sliding over, and it hung that, and it broke it right off. And then after that, the actual footrest started to crumble apart. You know? Let's talk about the brakes. You just saw recently I had to do a full brake job on the Can-Am. The brake pads were gone, literally gone, which allowed the pistons inside the calipers to start eating up the rotors. I mean, it was just an absolute disaster. It had gotten so bad that it was leaking brake fluid. That's how we even discovered it. I just took the wheels and tires off of this last week and checked it all out. It looks brand new. I mean, you can still see brake lining material on the pads. Everything looks brand new, you know? It's just, I mean, and we could go on, but I'm not going to continue to ramble about this, but it's the stuff that you don't see that makes the difference. You know, the quality that you see in these Suzukis and Hondas and so forth and so on, that's why they're priced so high, is because you're getting better materials. You know, maybe the specifications aren't necessarily better. You know, you're not getting more horsepower or bigger tires or fancier wheels or any of that kind of stuff, but the quality and the longevity and the dependability that you get in these machines, that's where the price comes from. The ease of servicing this thing, you know, just so on and so forth. The design, the quality, the engineering that goes into this, that's where the price is at. And I've kind of learned that through experience over the last year or so. You know, even when I did that basic maintenance on this thing a couple of weeks ago, you know, I can stand right here. I can see the fill port on the rear differential. I can see the drain port on the rear differential. If I walk around here, I can see the engine oil filter right there in the front. I can see the fill and the drain ports on the front differential, just standing here. So obviously when you get down and next to the machine, it's easy to get to all of this stuff. So you can keep this machine healthy and keep it going long term very easily and very inexpensively. Whereas on that machine over there, it's such a pain to do maintenance on it. It's almost like they want you to take it back to the dealership. I mean, that's kind of the way it feels when you start looking around on that thing and you're like, how do we even get to the oil filter without taking the plastics off the machine? Where even is the drain port and the fill port on the rear diff? We haven't done that yet because I haven't really felt like trying to take the thing apart to get to it to see what we have to do that. I mean, it's really annoying. So it's almost like they're trying to drive you back to the dealership to get service. You know, I mean, I guess the point that I'm trying to get to is sometimes it's what's beneath the skin that matters. And that's what I've learned about the Suzuki, is that it's just a much better quality machine. Is it the fastest thing out there? Absolutely not. I mean, by today's standards, the fact that a 750 class machine only makes 50 horsepower is kind of laughable, right? I mean, let's be honest, it's not really much power these days. So it's not the fastest thing out there. It doesn't have alloy wheels on it. It doesn't have big tires on it. It doesn't have a radiator that sticks up over the hood there so you can go into deep mud and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's much fancier ATVs on the market. So why would you spend $10,000 on something like this? Well, that's why. Because you buy something like this and you can keep it forever. That's just the way it is. Same thing with the Hondas. I mean, we all know those Honda ATVs literally last forever. I don't think you can kill one of those. You know, you look on Facebook Marketplace right now, and there's Honda ATVs on there that are 40 years old, you know, and they're still running great, and people are selling them and trading them and buying them, and, you know, so that's the difference. And I guess that's the point that I want to get to in the video, is that the Suzuki has not given me one single issue in the year that I've had it. It's been a joy to own. It's been a joy to ride. It's actually been somewhat enjoyable to do service on it because of how easy it is. I mean, I never worry about this machine. I get on it, I ride it, I use it to do work around here, whatever I need to do, and it's always ready to go. And not one single issue with it since I brought it home, which we definitely cannot say for this Can-Am Outlander out here. This thing, every single time we get on it, we find a new problem. So we're actually considering cleaning this one up and selling it, maybe buy a Honda or something else for him to ride. I don't know, but that's pretty much all I've got. 1 year in, almost a year in. Let me see how many miles there are specifically on this machine. Because to be honest with you, I don't even know for sure. Oh, it's got right at 700 on it. I thought we were getting closer to 800, but it is what it is. 700-ish miles. It's been a fantastic machine. The price is a little bit steep, I know, but when you buy a Suzuki King Quad like this, you know you're going to get something that you can keep forever. It's always going to be there for you. It's going to be dependable. You don't have to work on it. You can just get on it and ride it, and that's worth a lot. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.